Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back, and season 41 is over. Done. Finito. Goodbye. It's done, Alexa. Season 41. Probably the most bitter we've been during a season ever. And we've done some seasons together, that's for sure. We had Game Changers, we had Island of the Idols. Probably the most bitter we've been. It came to a conclusion last night with Erika pulling out the win. Ending up defeating Deshaun and Xander in the final three, which I was surprised she was able to so easily defeat Deshaun. I thought that would have been closer. It was not at all. John Millsip says I can eat my words for making fun of Canadians the entire podcast.
I know, Phil. You didn't even think they'd make the merge.
I know. And I said back to him, hey, rather than like not having them make the merge, now when somebody says Erika won Survivor Season 41, I can just say who? And I'd rather it go that way anyway, because now I control John and all of his friends that way instead. But Erika gets the win. Ricard did end up going home first. Heather somehow loses the fire making challenge, which Alexa, I think you had correct. I don't know what Kool-Aid you were drinking, but it worked.
I was drinking whatever Xander was drinking.
What in the world was that? But anyway, what do you think overall as a whole? How does this end? How does this close out the season in the opinion of Alexa? Pappas over
I gotta say it's a little different from the opinion of Phil Wood, just based on the GIF you sent me. I was into this finale. I thought it was great. I found myself shocked at how upset I was that Heather was like going home and had this huge crazy goodbye. That was the best fire making challenge of all time. And I think I was saying this to a friend. I was like, it's never even competitive. That's even a low bar to hit. So that was awesome. I think Erika had an incredible finale, and I think she had one of the better final tribals I've seen in like recent history. I am like sad for her that I was been like reading a lot of exit press today, and I am like, I'm just like kind of pissed that like we've been like begging for a woman to win, and like this is how we did it. Like this is how they were edited, but I feel for her, but I actually think like, if you read between the lines, which is not something that I think should be done, I should never have to like read the author's blog when I finish a book to figure out why the book was good. But I'm listening to Erika Final Tribal, and I'm like, damn girl, like you did kill it. Like good, good on you.
And you keep saying like now, so clearly she had an effect on you.
I've been hanging out with her a little bit. Exactly. No, she was so, and I think this is something that people bring up a lot. People will always find a way to allude to their job and how that makes them good at Survivor. Erika is clearly working in communications because she never faltered. She spoke so well and very confidently at Final Tribal. And I think at the end of the day, she knew how the jury perceived her and the others did not. And it sounds like Xander really messed this up by bringing her to the end just because of the reaction the jury had as soon as he said, I want to bring Erika. I did understand his reasoning of, I don't want her to have a big sell. And I know you and I talked about this a little bit, Phil, but I think finally winning the fire making challenge doesn't necessarily you are guaranteed any kind of win at this point. But I think Xander, I think he made a huge mistake by bringing her, and I think she capitalized on it beautifully. It sounds like that was her strategy the whole time. So huge kudos to her.
It actually seems like Xander would have got, I don't know who actually did throw the vote out for Deshaun. I think it was,
am assuming it was Danny.
It had to have been Danny. Ricard posted his picture of him voting for Deshaun, but it was obviously when he tried to vote Deshaun out of the game. It had to have been Danny. I think that Xander beats Deshaun, even though Deshaun beat Xander here, based on how the jury was reacting and based on how everybody was talking. I think that Tiffany, Evie, Liana, all these people who voted for Erika, they weren't going to vote for Deshaun. They were going to vote for Xander. So even though Xander lost to Deshaun, had he not taken Erika to the end with him, I do think he ultimately ends up winning this season, which is surprising to me because coming into it, I thought that he was in a lose-lose situation, had no shot coming into this episode. And yet, had he just decided to do the thing that made sense, he would have ended up winning the game. Now, here's my other thing, and this is something that I have to bring up here, and this is no knock on the elderly, in air quotes, women who have played Survivor. But if you are in a situation where you are in control of who to take to the final three, you always take the old woman if she is sitting there. And the reason is, how many women over the age of 50 have ever won Survivor? But then think about how many of them have actually sat at the final tribal council. There's actually been quite a few, and they never get the votes. That whole arc of the underdog who had to overcome so much, and just the motherly figure, all that sells to us as an audience. That does not sell on the island. And I was really surprised that Xander didn't take Heather and was like, well, she's going to show she's strong and all that. But Heather, you always, we just watched Julie Rosenberg, and I think Julie Rosenberg might have been like 49 or 48. So she's probably going to be mad at me about saying that. But most of the time, if you take the older woman to the end, you are going to beat them, because people aren't looking at that as, oh, you did just such a great job and we're going to give you these votes. They're still going to look for the reasons to give people the votes for playing the game of Survivor. And very rarely is it the older woman who sits at the final three who actually played the best game of Survivor. So I thought that was just short-sighted of him in general. But I don't know why he was so out of touch on Erika, because we've seen all of Luvu from really early on in this season talking about how strategic and how dangerous she was. And Xander just completely missed it. Just totally whiffed on it. It made no sense. He totally 100% whiffed on it. And it seemed like everybody was just as confused as everybody at home was. What did he just not see? I just can't fathom what he didn't see.
I think he didn't see that the jury didn't feel a connection to him. I think, but no,
I'm asking, what did he not see though in the connection that the jury had with Erika? Because why, he completely whiffed on that.
I think, I don't know, but I think Erika's, from what I've read and from what Erika said last night, her plan was to be, it's like I'm going to use the analogy of be the bridesmaid, never be someone's maid of honor, but be a close friend. So I think Xander maybe Erika had good relationships, but nothing close enough where they would be hurt when she got rid of them, versus Xander, who I think made these good connections with people and then cut them. And then people were saying, well, what the heck are we doing here? So I think that's it. I'm also, I know it's so tired to complain about the editors, but when did Xander and Ricard become best friends? Never. Did they ever speak?
No.
From what we saw.
We were made to believe Xander had no relationships all season.
Exactly. So for him to, that moment between him and Ricard was beautiful, but I don't know. I would have rather watched Shannon and Ricard have that, because I at least know that Shannon and Ricard like each other.
Well, and it kind of brought me back to Chris and Brett with their bromance, but we saw that very vividly on Millennials vs. Gen X. So I don't know why we didn't see that at all on this season, and we just didn't. And then that also brings me back to, well, we're on the subject. It brings me back to the pre-merge. And if you actually look at it, Erika had 4 confessionals in 5 episodes. So it wasn't like she was purple. It just felt weird because when we were seeing so much of Luvu, we weren't seeing her.
And we weren't seeing positive.
Yeah, and everything was negative about her. And so you have Danny and Deshawn, who make it to 2nd place and 6th place. So it makes sense that they're going to get a lot of screen time. My question, and for as much as I loved her on TV and thought she was a great character, why was Sydney getting all of the female confessionals on that tribe and Erika getting so little early on? Because I think what also sucks about this game and why I feel very indifferent to Erika's win, and that's not a knock on Erika, it's just I feel indifferent. This doesn't really do much for the season for me. It doesn't knock it down. It doesn't bring it up. It really couldn't knock it down much further than where I have it anyway. But I just feel kind of indifferent. And my reasoning is, I don't feel like I got to know who Erika was until we had this hourglass twist, which everybody in the universe agrees is total bullshit. And then that was such a focal driving point of her story. And so because of that, I don't know how I feel about Erika, because I almost forget anything that happened with her in the pre-merge because she was so irrelevant, except for the episode that they tried to throw the challenge to get rid of her. And that was negative. And then she picks up at arguably the worst twist in Survivor history. So it makes it hard for me to really know. I felt nothing when the 4th or 5th vote or whatever it was came out for Erika. It's not because I don't like her. This isn't a Natalie White, what the hell just happened. I just literally was like, okay. Like it's pretty much how I felt the first time I watched Vesepia win. Now I love Vesepia, but that's how I felt.
Well, I think you should just watch the season 19 more times.
19 more times until I convince myself it's good.
I think I think the story that they tried to tell us about her is Erika has always been a threat and nobody could ever do it. I think because I might rewatch the season, but like if I rewatched that episode about them trying to throw the challenge for her, it wasn't anything about how Erika's doing anything wrong. It was more about how the guys were failing at trying to get rid of her. And she's sneaky. Deshaun wants to get rid of her. Doesn't work all pre-merge. She's like up there for somebody to talk about to get rid of at the merge. They can't get rid of her. Then all of a sudden she puts all these other threats in front of her and then it's too late. She's I think, what did she say was either the final 6 or the final 8. She was like, I knew I put myself in a position where there was always an option for me to get further because there were other threats in the game. Amazing plan. I'm sure very difficult to portray that to viewers, but I think that's it. Like we didn't get anything bad about Erika. We just got a really slow burn on her. And I was excited because she was I think we finally got like her personality and like she was really excited, which got me excited.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel for her, like it, but also she probably doesn't give a shit because she has more than $1,000 or no. What did she say? She was like
more than $1 million.
Convert. Yeah. More. Well, hopefully.
Well, so John actually did this for me. So this is what happens when you have Canadian insiders. He wanted to let me know. It's important to note that Canadians don't pay taxes on lottery or game show winnings. So she will have to pay U.S. income taxes and then file to have that returned. And $1 million US is 1.3 million Canadian dollars. So she actually is making more money than Richard Hatch made way back in 2000. So good for Erika. And for anybody who's going to go play Survivor, move to Canada about 3 weeks before and get your citizenship or however that works.
Wow, that is
quick, but yeah,
that is awesome. Especially, yeah, wow, good for her. I gotta say, huge fan of the live finale. Gigantic fan of that. What was your take on that?
I think that again, I didn't feel much for this, mainly because I really didn't care at this point. Like,
it was quick too. It was
very quick. I mean, it was like maybe 15 minutes long of actual TV time. It was very, very fast. Jeff kept having awkward pizza breaks because he didn't know how else to cut to commercial because he didn't have a cue card.
Jeff, relax.
But I'm a fan of seeing this kind of thing. And I almost think in the future, because I think that you have to have the reunion. The reunion is a necessity for the game of Survivor. It is something that we must have on the show. But why not air a special of just this reactions after the final tribal? Because I know that we have Ponderosa and we have all of that going on. Why not make this CBS all access material? Because like Jeff said, they do this every single season. Now, they don't sit down and bring in everything, but they have the champagne, the pizza. After the final tribal council, they have a massive party for everybody who is still around, who's not on the pre-jury trip. Why not make that like a CBS all access type clip? Because I do agree, it was a fun, different perspective. However, again, I also felt like it was a little weird because it's like, it's all stuff we really did just hear. So Danny's story about his dad the second time, and, you know, it doesn't feel as revealing. There you go. Revealing to us anymore. And the rest of the cast, it's like, well, obviously they don't know yet, but if it was a reunion, they all know by now. I think it was a cool thing. I think that they should find a way to put it on the internet, but get back to having live reunions as soon as humanly possible, because it almost feels a little deflated. I'm like, I don't know what Erika looks like now. Like, what does she look like when she wins $1 million? Like, I saw what she looked like when she wins $1 million, but what does she look like as a millionaire? Like, how's she been living?
Yeah, because one of my favorite things is like seeing them cut to everyone, and everyone's like up 30 pounds, and everyone's looks so good looking. I think. Yeah, I want to find a balance because the reaction of everyone realizing that they were going, it was like the Dom and Wendell thing. Like, that was awesome. And I think like seeing Erika just be like, I want more champagne, I want more pizza. Like, that was really cool. And even I think like the reactions were very real. Like, Tiff was talking and Shan gave her pizza and she was like, no, I don't want any. Yeah. I liked that. But yeah, the conversation topics were not interesting. The scene was really interesting. So maybe they do like a very mini kind of reunion or a mini kind of thing right after, and then they do a real reunion like when they all fly home, because now they've watched themselves on TV. They can talk more about, the hate they probably got on social media. I think then they have more time to sit on what just happened.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like there was no like, what's the reaction been like since you've gotten home? Because there is none. And so like all of those basic talking points that we hear every single season, they're gone. Yeah. They're totally gone. No, I do think it's a cool idea. I mean, I think it's something that we can see in the future. We should be let in on like everything that's going on the show. I mean, like let us in on what's happening. Now, I know obviously you wouldn't be able to say, hey, you're the winner. How does this feel? Well, let's just watch them kind of party and celebrate the fact that like, hey, it's over. Like we went through this. Like, let's see the exhaustion on Deshaun and Xander's face and release this after the finale. So we already know who the winner is anyway, because watching that, Deshaun looked miserable. He just lost.
I felt bad
he looked
for him.
Depressed the whole time. But we're going to see that reaction in this little special that they're going to put out, but it's going to come after the reunion anyway. So who cares? Yeah.
And Deshaun will, at that point, like would have had time to like process how much he got, in my opinion, unnecessarily attacked for like, for whatever reasons he did. Another thing I did like, Jeff didn't do, Erika, okay, well, like, how did everyone outwit? Now, how did everyone outlast each other? There was just an actual discussion. I think the jury, what I did like about this jury is until Xander made that comment about how he wants to bring Erika to the end, they never really gave anyone anything. Like, I think I have PTSD from the Edge of Extinction jury, but these people they kept it shut down. There wasn't too much, there wasn't like anything too performative at like during the discussion. I think Shan's question to Deshaun, I think was very unfair to him. I think he had atoned for his sins enough.
I thought her question was total bullshit. Yeah.
I think to ask him to question his intentions, I think was unfair to him. I think like he had really atoned for himself at that point.
I will say, for as much as I loved Shan throughout the entire season, like definitely started to dwindle towards the end there, because I agree, like this, Deshaun's already talked about it. He's broke down crying at Tribal. He's had all these moments.
He's been carrying this.
It's almost like, hey, let me just like dig one more time because you're sitting there and I'm not. It felt like the sour grapes moment of the jury, which is unfortunate because Shan was such a fan favorite and still is such a fan favorite. But I think it's disappointing that that's kind of her last note from the season, because she really didn't talk much, if at all, at that little reunion thing.
Yeah. The reunion was kind of, it was short. It was like, I feel like it was like 20, 25
It was
minutes.
very short. Yeah.
But otherwise I think like they did a good job. Like they ended on a funny note with Liana and asking about Xander's idol. I think Danny did a really good job of complimenting every player and giving every player a chance, because this final three, all three of them brought something very different to the table. As much as the votes don't show it, this felt like a really, really strong group of final three, which I feel like we don't get very often.
I totally agree. And I think that had the vote been closer, we'd be talking about this as possibly top 3 or 4 final three ever. Yeah. Because it came out as an 8-1-0, most people aren't going to think that way, unfortunately, or 7-1-0, whatever it was. Right. However,
I feel good about it.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think like Xander, Deshaun, based on the edits we got, based on how strong their gameplay was, everybody in this final three was very integral. And that's the other thing, Alexa, and I think you're agreeing based on what you've said so far. Erika is getting kind of this, like, it was like this purple mystery. She had 3 episodes where she had no confessionals. Everything else, she was in it. Erika was still very integral to the game pretty much the whole time. Her tribe just wasn't losing at the beginning. And so I think that this was one of the first final threes in a very long time where everybody was very integral to what was going on. And they were all integral in different aspects of it. And even like when it was Todd, Courtney, and Amanda, they all worked together to get to the end. With this one, Deshaun got there in a very different way with a very different group of people than Erika. And Erika got there with a very different group of people than Xander. And Xander got there by himself. Very unique here, where they weren't aligned. None of these 3 people were actually aligned throughout the game. That never happens.
I think that's why I liked it so much. I completely agree. And I don't know. I can't think of every final 3 combo right now, but this is one of my favorites. And I think this is one of the better ones. I don't really care about how the votes fell. I more care about that. I think they all pitched themselves really well. I think they all had something very different to bring to the table. I thought it was a great final three. I walked in feeling like Deshaun wouldn't win because he just wasn't. He wasn't getting a lot of screen time, which I know is annoying.
Not positive, at least.
Yeah, and I think like you could tell that the jury was annoyed with him, and then like during the fire making challenge, that was crazy. And then between Xander and Erika, I was like, I'm really, I don't know, and I feel like I can usually tell at that point. So I like a final three that keeps me surprised, and this certainly did.
Yeah, I did, and I will say that Xander might have gotten 0 votes, but he's not a GOAT. And I think that there's a difference in these things. Like, like there's GOATs and there's people who just happen to get 0 votes because of who they're up against. And, like Will Sims, he's a GOAT and he actually got a vote, but he's a GOAT. Like he was a GOAT and got more votes than Xander did. Xander's not a GOAT. Xander wasn't dragged to the end. Xander got to the end. Xander wasn't dragged the way Nora even was back in 39. Like Xander was somebody who was on people's radars the whole time. He just went to the end with the wrong person. Had he decided to go with Heather and Deshaun, because Erika would have lost fire to anyone based on how that was going.
Yeah, that was
Had he decided to go to the end with Heather and Deshaun, Xander very well jumps from 3rd to 1st. That's how much of $1 million decision this was. Now, maybe he doesn't beat Deshaun. Maybe Heather actually gets more respect than we were expecting. But so many of the votes that went to Erika were Xander's votes to lose. Mm-hmm. And that is why this is such a monumental decision and why he's not a GOAT.
I was so hoping and waiting for Erika to say that she was playing up the fact that she didn't know how to make a fire and was actually very good at it. I was waiting for that, but that was really, really, really impressive that she didn't have to do that. She wasn't going to win at that. Like that wouldn't have happened. That was great. And I do think it's interesting that everyone has, I think this has been the case so far, but the person who wins immunity, they generally like give everyone the respect of having time to practice. I do like that. Like, I think that's, I don't know, it's making something that's kind of unfair, kind of fair.
Well, and I will say that with this fire making challenge, as exciting and awesome as this final fire making challenge was, right up there with Becky and Sandra for sure, in terms of epicness. For as great as this was, and it was great. I mean, he beat her by 2-3 seconds, whatever it was.
Yeah, what was up with her string? That needs to be checked.
Definitely needs to be checked. But also, I think the beauty of this fire making challenge is that no matter how good the fire making challenge is, most of the time the fire making challenge does not matter. Yes. It just happened to matter a lot the first 2 times they did this with Ben and with Wendell. Other than that, Kara losing, that literally does not matter at all. Chris Underwood winning, that changes things, but that's because that was a stupid season. Tommy got dragged to the end. Tony beating Sarah, Tony was going to win no matter who he sat next to. So that didn't really impact why he won the game. And then you have Erika in the Tommy spot. The fire making isn't actually that big of a deal at this point. So go out there and just know how to make fire. It's no longer an unfair twist. Just go out and make the fire.
Yeah, I think it's more of the fact that it just tries to save the David's rights. The when Ricard was going home, I was like, the way that this is going, I was like, we're gonna have a final 5 fire making, aren't we? Yeah. But yeah, that was. I agree with you. Like now, it's a thing. It's here. I think the problem is because of how fun that was. Now it's like, see, look how cool that could have been.
And I love it though. I'd rather it be really fun and have no impact. Like Deshaun won an epic fire making challenge and got 1 vote. It did nothing for his game. I'm just happy to see that juries are over the fire making challenge be the end all be all. Like, you didn't beat him in the fire, so it's not as like, no,
it's not a big sell.
That's not a big thing. And the only reason that I think it even became a discussion was because Dom lost by 1. And had he gone and beaten Wendell in fire, he would have won in a landslide. But at the same time, that's Wendell and Dom. That's a totally different situation. We never saw that in the history of Survivor, a competitive final 3 like that with 2 people who were that evenly matched. That's such an outlier. At this point, you don't have to make fire to win the game. You don't. Yeah. You want to not be in that situation. And I think Xander was right to not put himself in the situation. He was just completely wrong in who he selected to bring with him.
Yeah. And I think that's really kind of the bottom line here. Xander didn't know who he could beat and who he had a bad read. Yeah, exactly. I am just really glad he didn't play for the idol for Ricard. That would have been that would have been a monumentally bad move.
It would have. And I think, oh man, I think his playing the idol for himself was really bad too, though, because he had told Ricard that he would play it for him.
Yeah.
It felt like a slap in the face, not to the extreme of Bob to Randy, but it did feel a little bit like a slap in the face. Like it gets Ricard's hopes up. You've had this bromance that none of us knew about, and then you don't play it for him. That kind of feels out of left field.
Yeah, like why play him like that? And like I get like bringing it up and saying I could do this, but I don't know. I mean, clearly no one else has an idol. I think just like have the respect to get rid of Ricard and let him go home.
Don't even tell him that you're even thinking about playing the idol for him, and just go up and play the idol on yourself. And then, you know, that's on Ricard. Because Ricard, if Ricard gets the final 3, Ricard would have won easily, hands down, and would have been one of the better winners we ever had. But he didn't get the final 3, and that vote would have gotten him into the final 3. I really think that vote, had Xander saved him, Ricard would have probably won that last immunity challenge and would probably be sitting as the winner of Survivor.
Yeah. But I'm glad Ricard went home at 5 because it did make me like question who would win, which I appreciated.
Yeah, it made everything a little bit more uncertain, which is nice. It's good. Uncertainty in finales is a rarity, and it's nice when it actually happens.
It is nice. Yeah.
I was a lot more uncertain. That had a very Jenna Maraska versus Matt Van Ertfelda feel at the end there, where it was like, oh, this is going to be close. And then all of a sudden it was like, wait, it's 7-1. How did that happen? Like, I don't know. Like, it was very much not how I anticipated Erika to beat Deshawn. Although by the time we hit the final 3, I was like, Erika's going to win because Deshawn's gotten so much negativity in this finale. There's no way. But still, I was like, man, 7-1. Dean got more votes than that.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I think, and also Erika like finding the advantage early and like hiding it from Deshawn. Like it was always kind of 4-on-1 with him. I think the challenges were fun though.
I like the challenges. I like the little advantage that Erika got. It wasn't anything overwhelming, just a little something that didn't really seem to have that much of an impact. She just did the puzzle fast. I thought that was good. Like I liked all of that. Erika actually, and this is a fun one because Vengerberg just brought it up. Erika had 7 more confessionals than Parvati in season 16, which people just disregard the fact that, like, you know, there's a lot of great winners that have been under-edited that Erika either just passed or got really close to. So she wasn't as invisible as we think. She's just not at that icon level that Parv was also playing her second time. It's a little bit easier to, you already know that person coming out their second time. Yeah,
there's like a infographic floating around Twitter of like all the edits of winners. And I think Erika has, I don't really know how it's calculated, but Erika has like the 34th.
Same thing, yeah,
which is worse. So like her edit is by no means good. Phil,
but it's better than Parv's,
which is ridiculous.
And Denise.
That's crazy. Maybe Denise. I think Denise also got a lot of like physical time. Like we didn't literally see her a lot. What did you tell me that Heather was 2 confessionals away from Natalie White? And I responded, I hate that for both of them.
Yes, she was 2 confessionals away from tying horrifying. Natalie White for how many confessionals Natalie White had on her winning season. Yeah,
that's brutal.
Bonkers.
But happy for Erika. I'm happy she just got $1 million. I mean, that doesn't happen.
1.3 Canadian. And here's John. John says no idols played, which affected the game at all. That is a massive thing. And for a season that was quite frustrating at times, that is really, really cool.
A lot of them fell through, which was awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's where we want to start seeing Survivor go. The idols are there, but they're not as easy to play. They're not making as much of an impact on the game. Because I will say, like, watching the preview for season 42, I was like, oh, great. It's season 41, just with a 2 instead of a 1. Like, it was the same exact thing.
I have skin. Potatoes have skin. I am a potato.
It's the same exact. It looks like it's gonna be the exact same game. Like whatever twist, it's gonna be the same stuff. And that's not very exciting, but it is cool to see that we just got through a season without any idols being played.
I know. And Jeff said, I don't know if this is Jeff being Jeff, but he's like, we tried a lot of new things with you guys. Like we'll tweak them a little bit. And I was like, eyebrow waggle. What do you mean by that? Hopefully they don't copy everything. Like, for many, many reasons, boredom being one of them. Yeah. I like the Public Idol thing. Like, I can enjoy that for one more season, but I'd almost would have rather enjoyed it in 43 because then the players would like know how to be smarter with them. Or you can change the phrasings and make them a little different. But I don't know. We're going to see another knowledge is power. We're going to have another like random summit island. I don't know. I hope we don't have another hourglass twist, but
yeah,
whatever.
But we are.
But we will.
And you know it's coming. Yeah, and like so as we're putting this thing to rest, we're 30 minutes in. We don't need to talk that much longer about it. But how are you feeling about this season as a whole? Do you like where do you think? And I know neither one of us has our ranking anywhere near in front of us, but where would you say like what do you feel about this now that it's over?
I feel like a sandwich about it. Like amazing start, and I really, really enjoyed the finish. But everything else in the middle like felt very okay to me. I think this was a cast that was kind of underutilized. Like I think like we got a lot of good Xander time. Like I think the Ricard and Shan thing was really good, but I don't know. I don't feel like I feel like a lot of the players were very secondary to hourglass twists and all these other things. The good thing is they didn't affect the game. So for that, I am very thankful. I feel better about it than I did, but it's probably because I really, really enjoyed this finale. I don't like doing season rankings. I don't know. I'd put it in the late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, it's definitely in the 30s for me. Like definitely. I just there's so many frustrations that like no matter who won this game, I was still going to be like, but there's another day. There were just so many things early on in the season that were just downright dumb. And I don't really necessarily like the direction that it pointed Survivor in. I didn't really enjoy watching maybe like the first 7 episodes of this season. Like it really was just every time it was like, okay, it put a bad taste in my mouth the next week.
Yeah.
This would be in the 30s for me for sure. Probably the lower 30s. Like this is not going to be highly considered by me at all. Maybe I'm just becoming that old man now who says Survivor was better when it was old. Now I'm Mario Lanza now. That's just happening. But I'd rather sit down and watch like a normal season of Survivor that just happens to have a terrible final 2 like Brian and Clay than watch like all these crazy things and be like, what even is this? There were just so many dark moments for us as a podcast because of what was happening on our TVs that it's low for me. It's very, very low.
Yeah, it felt episode by episode. I did not enjoy the season at all. Like episode by episode, I thought this was a very, very subpar season. I think it had I think it had like yay survivors back to me, and I think it had an amazing start and amazing finish. But I'm not like clamoring to learn more about it. I'm not clamoring to any exit interviews as I wasn't earlier.
Although if they want to come on our podcast, we're clamoring.
Please come.
Yeah, we're clamoring. All right, let's get to the important part here, Alexa, because we actually did this. So we have the 3 games to actually give out awards for, right? We actually have to do that. So first, prop bet results. Celestina finished second by 1 point. So Celestina, you don't win. But the winner was Brian Johnson. So congrats to Brian Johnson. Won the prop bet. I have the buffs right here. So you got to DM us your address and stuff. And I can't figure out where to put it. And we'll actually send them to you. Pretty stuff. Now, of course, Brian Johnson, you don't get first choice. So you might be stuck with whatever color. Second, first place in the bootless game he scored 56 points and actually got 9 points because of Deshaun getting, or whoever they had at second place. They were off by 9. That person actually finished 11th. Parker Dickerson. So 56 points per Parker. Jimmy Johnson was second with 64. So it's an 8-point difference. And then before we do the power rankings one, I just want to say intern wiped the absolute floor with us this year. He had first and second place in the fantasy game. So intern, congrats on redeeming yourself. You're back, buddy. I finished last by a whole lot. But for the power rankings game, despite having an absolutely horrific finale, first place Ricard, second place Xander, third place Heather, fourth place Erika, fifth place Deshaun. Didn't get anything right. Wasn't even remotely close. Jake Thulin built up such a lead that Jake Thulin still pulled it out with 91 points.
Wow.
So
He actually emailed us and was like, I blew it. So,
nope.
wow.
Hung on, because everybody thinks Xander's dumb, including our podcast patrons. They all thought that it was going to be Heather at third place, and that saved you, Jake. The lowest point total for this episode was 4 points. Wow. in terms of how people did. So Jake, you get to choose if you want the blue one or the green one. They didn't have any Yase ones, so that's what you're getting. After you choose, we will dish the other two out. So hit us up, DM us, whatever it is. What do we want to? How do we want to get messaged, Alexa?
Ideally like a Twitter or Instagram DM, or an email. Actually, email us at survivorspecials@gmail.com. That is the cleanest, but you'll just find us.
You'll figure it out and let us know who you are and that you won. And Jake, you get the first choice. And since you already emailed us, you clearly know how to get in contact with us. But that's it. We're going to hopefully be getting some of these survivors on here soon, as long as we didn't badmouth their season enough.
Yeah, sorry.
So I'm really not. They know it's not their fault. But yeah, Erika, congrats on the win. Another one of those where, hey, the winner won. She deserved to win. I just wish we would have seen why so many people wanted to play the game like Erika, even though the editors still have not figured out how to edit a social game worth shit. So
not at all.
That's that. Alexa, anything else you want to say before we say goodbye on this podcast and season 41?
I don't think so. I think, we're excited to hopefully talk to a good chunk of this cast in the coming weeks. Season 42 is a coming. There's someone who looks like Rick Devens on it. And
that was Rick Devens.
That was Rick Devens. He has returned yet again. I'm excited to dissect these people. In a few months.
And if you haven't been a patron ever, if you become a patron now, you still can get all of the content we already did in the past. And so you can get our initial takes on the Survivor season 42 cast, which we did way back over the summer. And Alexa and I are not going to re-listen to them. So there's probably a good chance that we're not going to have any clue what we were talking about and not be consistent at all. But that content will be coming up. Probably not for a little while. We won't actually do the cast assessment until the cast is officially announced. And it looks like Survivor's not coming back till March. So that's going to be interesting. If you become a patron, though, McKenna Feeney's kind of taken over a little bit with our Patreon and getting us going. She's going to be doing the Amazing Race. I don't know who she's doing it with, but the Amazing Race will be for patrons. So go ahead, check that out for top tier patrons, because Alexa and I, we're not going to do it. I think they're going to do some stuff with old school Survivor season. So there's going to be a lot going on for the patrons now that we're kind of rolling along. Anyway, that's it. This was sort of fun. I'm glad season 41 is over. I hope season 42 is a little bit better. Probably won't be, but hey, I'm not going to be negative. I'm just going to keep being negative. Alexa, this was fun, and we'll see everybody soon. Just follow us so that you can find out when we're actually going to have people on.
Bye, everyone.